I really hope that my need for a haircut in the middle of isolation is, like, apparent. If there's anyone who, knows a good way of being able to cut your hair by yourself, let me know, because this ain't looking too good, Chief. A couple of months ago, I made a video that had a link to a survey with a couple of questions, maybe like 15 or 20, about the basic question, why are you a fan of CG Sports? And I feel like this might be a pretty good way to answer that kind of question. Now, it's not like this is an official or professionally done form. This is just something that I had in a Google Forms link with a couple of basic questions, but the idea was more to separate the people who root for a team from those who root for a region or are into Siege because of a player. And then there's even some opportunities for people to explain directly why they were a fan or what got them into it, blah, blah, blah. So when I put the form up, I just kind of let this run. I made maybe one or two small tweaks to it after it was released, but it's got over 1,800 responses on it, which I feel is a pretty decent sample size of my channel. And a lot of the people who know what I do on YouTube are people who came from the r/r6 Pro League subreddit. So I feel like in one fell swoop, this is a good way to gauge the demographic of people who are on my channel and that are on the subreddit kind of at the same time. It's got a couple basic demographic questions: gender, age range, how closely do you follow CG Sports, and where do you live? And then there's a whole bunch of other ones in here that I was just kind of thinking up. I think this idea was kind of spur of the moment, which is why I'm saying it's not professionally done, but I think it's a pretty good way to help answer the question. So, oh my god, all of you are dudes. Where are my ladies at? I wish I knew what to say here. This is kind of an expected result, I suppose, because this is a very male-dominated industry, but by the same token, I mean, hey, I'm happy that there's still, what is it? 1.6%. There's 29 of you. 29 female Rainbow Six Siege fans exists. I'm very happy to have you here. Most people look like they're from the 18 to 24 age range, followed closely by 13 to 17. So yeah, this goes from 13 all the way to 24. And this might have been a little bit confusing because I know that these numbers may seem a little bit random, just in terms of which ages were selected, but this was kind of my way of trying to figure out who all had what piece of the pie. And I don't think a single person answered younger than 13. It was either your teenage years or your young adult years, a little bit between 25 to 30, but aside from that, again, this is also a pretty expected result. Most people say that they're in between a 4 and a 5 when it comes to how closely they follow it, so that's just how in tune are you with the news? Do you stay up to date? Do you know all the rules? Things like that. This was kind of an all-encompassing question. And most people think that they're between a 4 and a 5. So that's, again, coming from the Pro League subreddit and then coming over here, this honestly still makes sense. Where do you live from Siege's main regions? Okay, this one, I think I might have done this wrong because I gave an option for people to kind of put whatever they wanted in here, but the point was, where do you live from Siege's main regions? Now, this was me trying to do North America, Latin America, Europe, and then all of the APAC subregions, but then there were some people who didn't want to respond from that, so they have a whole bunch of other ones in here. India, South Africa, the Middle East, Israel. Wow, there's a whole bunch of people from the Middle East. East Asia, Egypt, but we play on EU servers. But the point is, the majority of the people who filled this survey out are from North America, with about 33% of people from Europe. Here's the problem, though. The thing with this form is that Latin America has 3.4% of the pie, but Australia and New Zealand has 6.3%, which to me means that, you know, if you were from Brazil and you saw this forum, you wouldn't fill it out because you probably didn't speak the language. When it comes to like region or team loyalty, it will definitely be skewed in the favor of, you know, people who speak English because that's what I target, because it's what I speak. Would it be accurate to say you primarily root for teams from the region in which you live? So now we're getting down into what do you root for and why do you root for it? 55% of people say that they root for a team from the region that they live in, and 37% say that they don't. There's a couple questions further down this forum that we can kind of get into why that's a thing, but more than half of people said that this was kind of the way that they swung. Now, this is if you live in the United States and you root for TSM, or you live in some European country and you root for G2, or you live in Australia and you root for Fnatic. That's just kind of how this goes. I am curious about why 37% said that they don't root for a team in the country which they live in. That can either be because they don't root for any particular team, or it's because maybe they're a fan of a content creator and they'll, you know, root for that content creator. Unless this is just 688 G2 fans. I don't know. We'll find out. This, I kind of made a mistake here. This was a question that was supposed to pick from a couple of different options, but then I left one open for other, and I didn't realize that you could put like whatever you wanted into this. So I'm going to work off of just what's right here, and then we can kind of like dive through some of the other things that people listed in that comment. 62% of people said that they wanted to learn more about the game, so they started watching esports. Okay, so if you wanted to like find a measure of improving or just figuring out more how the game worked professionally. So that's more than half of people. That's 62%. That's pretty substantial. Over 1,000 people says, I just like watching good games of Siege. Okay, so if you want to watch really good Siege games, then doing it at the pro level would obviously be the place to do it. 600 people says, I am/was a fan of a pro player from YouTube. Yeah, so I think if I read the whole question out, it's I am or was a fan of a pro player from YouTube/Twitch, so I listed Bolo, Pengu, King George, and Nesk as examples. I don't know why I put Nesk in here, because Zig is a far bigger content creator from a Twitch standpoint, but it doesn't really matter. 386 people says, I enjoy the production quality of major events. 337 people says, it just showed up on my Twitch YouTube feed for some reason. Somebody introduced me to it, and it stuck, and I like to root for specific org/organizations. Okay, so it's almost like this last one was me trying to say, are you a fan of FaZe Clan in COD, and you came over to Rainbow Six because FaZe Clan had a team in Siege. So you can carry over that sort of brand loyalty if you really, really love an organization for some reason, and then when that organization entered the Siege scene and started marketing it to their fans, you were one of the guys that came over from that. There's a whole bunch of other ones, but some of them just like, love Siege, pro player got me involved, want to be a pro one day, okay. BDS, you guys are hijacking my form. I met CaliberJacob. Which one of this was you? Casters are phenomenal, a fan of Zig, Kicks It in Tarot, Charms. You got into Pro Siege because of Charms, son. If you answered other to the previous question, explain your reasoning here. Okay, there is a spreadsheet of all of these answers that is up online right now. I will link that in the description if you want to go through and read through all of this kind of stuff, but there's so many different individual responses in here that I don't think I could possibly like read all of them. Like, y'all are typing paragraphs. This might be something that I want to set aside like a specific Twitch stream or something to like go through all of these, because there's 260 of them. The point is, there's so many different reasons in here. It is kind of insane. Would you say your reason for watching CG Sports initially still carries over to why you watch today? And it was an overwhelming yes. So this is just saying, if you got into the scene for some reason, are you still in the scene because of that same reason? And that was definitely the majority of people. 88% of people said they root for a team, and 11% said that they don't. This is also something we get into a little later in the survey, because you can have multiple reasons for not rooting for a team. It can be more that your loyalties lie within the region itself, as opposed to a particular team, or maybe you root for a player, blah, blah, blah. We'll figure this out. What would be your main reason if you rooted for a specific team? Most people said, I support a specific player and he or she just happens to be on that team. Okay, so maybe this is where more of that content creation thing comes into play. If you're a fan of Pengu or Bolo and you want to support them from a professional standpoint, then you're gonna go root for TSM or G2. If you're, a big content creator, you're going to attract that fan base over to your Pro League games, which is probably the reason why you can see the big spikes in viewership on YouTube for if you have a big content creator on your team or not. This one's probably the most even pie of like the whole survey. Like 14% said they like the org, 14% said they like the underdog story, 15% said that they're the best and I want to see them dominate, so that's the New England Patriots complex, or they're in my home region. Oh, wait, 17% of people say they support the team in the home region, even though, like, further up in the survey, would it be accurate to say you primarily root for teams within the region that you live? Oh, well, I mean, I guess this question is more about the particular team, like if you support one specific one as opposed to like a whole bunch of them. So I guess I thought this would honestly take up more. I didn't think this percentage would be so small. That's intriguing. So now we get to the region question. Do you actively root for a Pro League region as opposed to just one team? Now, if we look at the one for the Pro League team versus the Pro League region, you can definitely see the no's have more of a majority within the region. Now, there's a video by my friend Gregory that you can go and watch that he talks about how rooting for a particular region is a little bit weird. He has a lot more comparisons to real world sports than to esports, but it's still an interesting watch. I'll link it in the description. I think I'm more inclined to root for where the players are from, because when I was at the Invitational on the last day, both TSM and Space Station were playing Ninjas in Pajamas, and the cheers were overwhelmingly in the majority of both North American teams, because a North American crowd doesn't want to see a Brazilian team take home the hammer. But there's clearly 31% of people that just don't share that same philosophy, which I can totally get. If you root for a specific region, what would be the main reason? So again, this was one that you didn't have to answer if you didn't vote yes on this question above, and 56% of people say because it's your home region. So the majority of Siege fans support a region because it's where they live. Only 56% of people thought this way, though. That's crazy. And then this one comes back up. A quarter of people say I support a specific team, and they just happen to be from that region. And the majority of people from supporting a team say it's because they support a specific player. So this is a very weird way of saying, if you like Bolo, you probably root for all North American teams because Bolo is from there. If you like Pengu, you could root for all of Europe because Pengu's in Europe. And that's just on the scale of people who are massive content creators that also happen to work in the pro scene. This is, I know that's kind of a string theory, but that's just kind of where my mind went. Now I'm curious about whether I did this form wrong or not. Would you say overall that you're more of a fan of the Siege esports landscape as a whole instead of supporting specific players, teams, or regions? 85 people said, wait, 85% of people said yes to this? Oh, I might have messed this up. I was more trying to ask, if you don't root for a team, if you don't root for a region, then do you just like the whole scene? So I think I did this one incorrectly. The fact that 85% of people said yes, I expected this to mostly be no, because if most people said that they supported a team or a region, then the percentages of people who said no to both of these questions doesn't really add. I might have not done this question right. I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments if for some reason I didn't do this right. How high or low would you rate your understanding of Siege to the point that you can understand what is happening when you watch competitive play? And an overwhelming majority of people said, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best, they have all the understanding that they need when it comes to watching pro play. So 1,000 people here, they can watch a Siege professional broadcast and say they have full understanding of what's happening. And there's 2 of you who don't know what the heck you're watching. Why do you watch me in the first place? Kiki. Does watching competitive Siege make you want to compete at a pro level yourself? As a player, coach, and analyst, 77% of people said, yeah, that is definitely my shtick. That isn't a surprise. I think there's a lot of people who would watch really any sport or any competition and think, you know what, that'd be really cool if I did that at some point. I wanted to play football when I was really young because I loved watching football at 8 or 9 years old. I can definitely vouch for this one, but that's just kind of when you're watching anything, regardless of what it is that's being played on broadcast. Does watching competitive Siege make you want to get more involved from a talent perspective? So this was a caster, observer, content creator, league management, that kind of stuff. This one was a little bit less, but that's mostly because it's less glamorous and there's less reward associated with it than, being a player and winning a tournament. You obviously want to win a tournament in most cases rather than just watch other people win a tournament. So this also makes perfect sense to me. But still, 2/3 of people saying that they would want to get involved from a caster or observer standpoint is still pretty astounding. And now we get to the crowning achievement of this survey. I pulled all of you in here, all 1,800 people into the survey, just so that they can answer this question at the bottom. Pants. I just pulled a whole bunch of memes together, and we're gonna see which meme was the superior meme. The winner is... GG's, don't ever type again, thank you. Alright, so y'all are Merc fanboys, thanks. -640 gang is something you'll only get if you're in Twitch chat. You're gold, your opinions don't matter. Hey, I'm not a gold, I've been plat these past 2 seasons, fuck off. 12% of you are Shiko meme lords. When does Bolo play? That was the first one, and that didn't even get 10% of the vote. Intero is a communist. The second one is Intero is a communist, bruh. And then I left one last text box at the very, very end that was just saying, if there's anything else you want to say about your involvement or interest in fandom when it comes to Siege Esports, if there was something that I didn't mention in a question up above, over 800 different responses to this kind of stuff. I hate that the first one is also BDS takes it. Is there nothing that you morons can take seriously? I'm probably going to do one really long Twitch stream that I just spend doing nothing but reading the responses that came out of this form. This was kind of a difficult thing to quantify because, again, at the end of the day, I think I kind of answer my own question. There are so many different reasons for people to get involved in the scene that it's difficult to put all of them to a number. But if I do end up doing a stream where I read through all of these, I will probably put something in the YouTube community tab for it. I'll leave a link to Twitch channel and then let you guys know when that stream is. That's if I end up doing it. So anyway, I guess this video was just kind of a thing. I don't really have a whole bunch of stuff to make content on considering we're in limbo waiting for Ubisoft to announce details details about what the next league system looks like. So hit up my Twitter, my Twitch, and this YouTube channel for more in the coming days, please and thank you. And be sure to pimp out the Patreon if I can. Patreon.com/CaliberJacob. YouTube is still not monetizing my content, so if you want to throw money at my face and don't want to do it in a Twitch subscription, there's plenty of options over there. Again, patreon.com/CaliberJacob. I hope you'll check it out. Thanks a lot for watching.